Robert Brown from the John Birch Society still owes me $10,000 for proving him wrong by providing evidence of delegates to the convention that claimed they had the authority to draft a new system of government. So Robert, buddy, my Venmo account's still empty. Please start the deposits fairly soon, okay? Christmas is coming. Get ready to have your constitutional history rocked on all things Article 5. I'm Ken Quinn. I'm very excited about what we have planned for this channel, and I appreciate you coming along for the ride. If you have ever been involved in Article 5, either as an activist or a legislator, then you know there are people and groups out there spreading a lot of misinformation about the Article 5 convention.
Yeah, the $10,000, I do have $10,000. There it is, right there, digital money. But I'm serious about this.
There it is. You heard it for yourself. So here is his challenge.
Find me the delegate in the 1787 convention who rose and said, we have the authority in our delegate commissions. I've issued a $10,000 bounty on that quote. No one's come up and said, hey, pay me. I found the delegate that said we have the authority in our state commissions to create this national form of government, because it doesn't exist. If the delegates in 1787 convention were really authorized to do what they did, why did not any of them know it? That's the question that I'm putting out there to the convention promoters. Why didn't any of them know it? Show me the one that stood up and said so. I challenge anyone to come up with that delegate. In fact, one of the challenges that I repeatedly put out to the other side, they never want to answer this. Show me the delegate. Show me the delegate who made that claim, who says we had full authority. And I've offered $10,000 to find me that delegate. Find me even one founding father, a delegate to the 1787 convention, who believed and stated their delegate commissions authorized them to create a national government. Not one of them ever said so. I've never had anyone want to come take my $10,000 for some strange reason.
I'm your Huckleberry. While Robert Brown looks like somebody's going to expose your lies.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Wednesday Night Live. You may have seen the intro and been like, is this the Patriot Think Tank? Am I watching the right channel? But we are huge fans of the gentleman that I have with me today, Kenneth Quinn, who started that channel, All Things Article 5, so that he can go after John Birch Society and the King Dootaroo of the Grand Poobah Dootaroo of the John Birch Society in Robert Brown, who had gone out and placed a challenge of $10,000 and travels the country talking about this he's got this $10,000. No one seems to be taking it until I'm your Huckleberry. Oh, man. Kenneth Quinn, how are you? Welcome to the program.
George, thank you very much, man. I'm glad we were able to connect. I appreciate the opportunity to be on.
Absolutely. You came up in my feed one day. This was what, maybe how old's the channel now? Like 4 weeks or so?
About a month,
right?
yeah, about 4 weeks. It's brand and spanking new, yeah.
So I'm just scrolling through my YouTube and I see, I'm like, what's this? I'm like, is this another Article 5 channel? And immediately I'm clicking on it, watching them, and I saw like you were like 2 days old or something, and they're like 10 subscribers. I was like, what the? I'm like, I got to get all over this. I'm like, and even with Robert Brown, right, who tried to, as you were putting out some teaser videos, he tried commenting himself. So you got his attention, and he came on and was like, oh, that's not really what my challenge was, and why don't you go ahead and tell them what? And then, of course, you folks go in there and check the comments. It's funny. You'll see the Patriot Think Tank in there trolling them. Like, you're just going to have to wait for the next episode, buddy. And he dragged on for like 2 or 3 teasers. And then when you finally started dropping the bombs, nothing. Crickets.
Crickets, yeah, he likes to use the term crickets and on his PowerPoint slides. And did you notice though, when in that video, that first one where I really put the challenge out there, I said, well, listen, what if it's $10,000 per quote, per delegate? I could be leaving a lot of money on the table. And he specifically said, no, 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 it's only 10,000, no matter how many you provide. And so
Oh,
you know, hey, I'm a capitalist at heart, right? So.
I hear you, and we were all in the comments rooting for the extra money too. Like, and it's look, this guy, it's a common thing with JBS, right? I mean, you've been dealing with them for a while. I don't deal with them directly, but I do get people. I've been asking. I've been putting in videos like, when I bashed them with Antonin Scalia for that video they did for him. I called him out and said, any one of you, if you want to, you can email me at info@thepatriotthinktank.com, and I'll be more than happy to bring you on this broadcast and dismantle you in front of everyone. Like, I will have no problems doing that, and we're a smaller channel, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say, well, maybe they didn't see it, but I'm pretty damn sure they did. If Robert Brown caught on to yours and your channel was 2 days old, then I'm pretty sure that they're well aware that I dismantled him and not him, JBS, Publius Holda, and the rest of the merry dootadoos that run around the country, spewing that nonsense. So I'm curious, and Sheila, how are you? So your sister's in the fight. There you go, Marilyn. Marilyn, welcome to the broadcast. Great to have you here. So while we're still early in the broadcast, I want to make sure I put it out there that I would like, especially for, if we have any Convention of States Action people watching, or any supporter of Article 5 in general, or even if you want to if you don't know about Article 5 and you want to learn more about Article 5, I want to encourage you to go to YouTube, All Things Article 5. You also have a Facebook page as well, right?
Yeah.
Same thing,
Yeah.
All Things Article 5, right?
Yeah.
And just check in, subscribe, follow. I can tell you, we're going to get into some of the proof that he dropped. And I can tell you that those videos alone were educational for me. And I'm all over this stuff, right? You guys hear me talk about this all the time. And I'm watching Kenneth's videos and I'm like, really? I'm like, who's this guy? I'm waiting for him to just drop Madison on him and drop the mic and walk away. And he's like, nope, here's number 1. Here's number 2 in the next video. Here's number 3. Oh, you know what? Let's get to Madison, huh? Like, I guess I should get to. And I'm just like, oh my God, like the whole thing was an educational experience. So before we get into who those people were, and don't give out too much because we want people to watch the videos, but everyone go and subscribe. Make sure you're following. All right. We're all in this together, folks, right? We're all in this together. And the more ammunition we have, the better off everybody is, the better off this nation is. So All Things Article 5, both Facebook and YouTube, get out there, get yourself followed and following and subscribed. And then Kenneth, I just wanted to ask you, how did you first hear about I know everyone's got a story as to how they came about stumbling upon Article 5. And I don't know if it was for you. For me, it was a very humbling moment that I had gone this far in my life, not knowing that we even had this power. And I had considered myself, as most, America-loving people do, that we know the Constitution, that we're aware. But, after the aside from the amendments, most people, even the amendments, some of them people don't know, but this was humbling for me. So what was the experience like for you?
Yeah. Just call me Ken. Kenneth is way too formal.
That's what
Yeah. So for me, I've got a fairly interesting story, and I think it can resonate with a lot of people out there, especially like legislators. I was on Robert Brown's side of the fence on this. I was completely against an Article 5 convention. In fact, let me see. Yeah, I broke this out of my treasure chest. I used to hand out the JBS DVDs, Beware of Article 5, right here. I wonder if I can get my money back on that. It wasn't that much. So what happened was, I live in Maine, and so there was an effort. An Article 5 applications began in Maine, and At the time, I remember having a JBS speaker come to one of my meetings that I was doing at the Republican committee, right? And, he shared a lot of information. And that's kind of where I got plugged into this anti-Article 5 information. And so I just believed it, right? I just accepted what I was being told by this DVD was accurate. And so, silly me, I didn't research it. I didn't even look at the quotes. I just handed out DVDs to legislators in my district and say, don't you ever support one of these things. That's where I'm coming from. So if there's anybody out there that has been very leery of Article 5 convention process and you're kind of like, oh, it's a runaway, trust me, I get it. I was there. So what happened with me was, as I started to really struggle with this, why am I against something that's in the Constitution? And so as
that's where I came from.
Yeah.
That was my first question.
So it was interesting because I had a friend of mine who I started looking into the Article 5 and I started sharing what I was learning with her. I'm like, you got to read this. I'm starting to change my mind on this whole thing. And what happened, I ordered Madison's notes from the Philadelphia Convention. I ordered the Federalist Papers. Never read these before. Okay. Never looked at them. The Anti-Federalist Papers. I ordered about 8 books deal with that time frame. And I started doing my own research. And lo and behold, it didn't take very long to realize, oh my word, these guys were geniuses. They put the convention mode in the Constitution as a way of checking the power of a runaway federal government. They knew the government they were creating would become tyrannical, and this was a check. And once that light went off, I became an advocate of this. We have got to do this. These guys were geniuses, and this is something that we've got to stop being fearful of. That's why my slogan on my channel is experience must be our only guide. Fear will paralyze us. That's a tweak on what John Dickinson said at the convention in Philadelphia. He said, experience must be our only guide. Reason may mislead us. So I kind of tweaked it for today. And this fear that so many people have of the Constitution, that's why I started the channel. We have got to get the truth out there because all these lies by the John Birch Society in particular is it's actually harming our country because it's not allowing us to use the check the framers gave us. And that's why this is so important.
Yeah. And, and I'm like, I've spent a little while trying to figure out JBS because I don't really understand, there's something going on, right? There's something going on with that organization for it to have been around for so long. And now part of me thinks that there's a part of me that gets conspiratorial about it because I don't have an explanation. And when you don't have an explanation, you start going down those roads because you think to yourself, you listen to people who are, fair-minded, conservative-minded, even if they're not conservative-minded, but they're very constitutionally minded in one sense or another, in many ways. But then there's this, and they make such a big deal about this that it almost makes me think that this has always been, that the elites, whoever you want to put in that category, the federal government, the WEF, whatever it may be, they understand. I know that they all know about Article 5. I know that all these high-end, these people, if there's anything that will scare the living crap out of all of them, it's an Article 5 convention. And I put nothing past what they would do in order to stop it. And the idea that whether it started for this reason or that at some point, JBS just sold out and just sold their souls. And that, at that point, they're now out there advocating a position that is shared by George Soros. And so trying to process that mentally is just crazy. So I've blown them off now. But look at what they do, right? Fear tactics. Who uses fear tactics?
Yeah.
Right. Like conservatives don't use fear tactics. Like that's a leftist Marxist tactic, right? I'm talking to some people from Convention of States Action. They were down in Pennsylvania, and JBS shows up at their event to disrupt things. And it's like, who does that, right? Like when I look at their behavior, they behave and they hold positions and they behave like Marxists, like today's Marxists. They're disruptive, they use fear tactics, etc.
Yeah, well, that's why I want folks to subscribe, because in a few weeks, I'm going to be doing a deep dive into the John Birch Society. And you are going to be blown away what you're going to learn about this organization. I don't know. Did you know this? But back in the 60s and 70s, they were one of their top 5 goals was to call an Article 5 convention. Did you know that they were working on an Article 5 convention in the 60s and 70s?
Did not know that.
Yeah, wait till you see this. This amendment that they were trying to get proposed by the state legislatures through Article 5 is one of the best amendments I've ever seen in my life. It's called the Liberty Amendment. And wait till you see the episode on that. And
that's crazy. That's the title of Levin's book, isn't it?
Yeah. But this amendment was drafted in 1944. And they started pushing to get this thing proposed through an Article 5 convention in the 1960s and through the 70s.
What were the topics?
It was number one.
Or am I blowing your episode right now?
Okay. Well, yeah, you are. So that's okay. If you want to learn about this, because it shows how they flipped, and then I got an episode showing when they flipped and why. So your mind is going to be blown up by this when you see it, man.
And this is really the point of doing tonight's live episode with you like this, because like the videos that you put out are very educational, right? Like I've split my, and you're all like, yeah, almost every video that I do, I think every video that I do ends in some way with a tie-in to Article 5 and why it's important and things like that. But like the deep history dive that you do, and like, and you know, this is probably a good time. So even just to touch upon some of the people that you used to collect that 10 grand, and he needs to pay this. And honestly, like folks, you can go into when you go to All Things Article 5 on YouTube and you click that subscribe button and click that bell for alerts, you're going to see under the early videos, you're going to see Robert Brown himself. He's on there commenting on the early videos, and he stops commenting right when the bombs drop. As soon as he starts bringing up founders, it's here's one. Hold on. So Robert, he said, I missed the beginning. Where do I subscribe? You go to All Things Article 5 on YouTube and Facebook. He's on both. So
can you drop a link in the chat by any chance? I can't.
I can. Let me try and look it up, and I can pull it up.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I'll talk about it. So yeah, so for those of you that might not be aware, that's why I want to direct you to the channel. Robert Brown, who I don't know if he works for JBS, or he used to, but
I looked him up. He has some kind of position there still.
Yeah, and so he goes around the country, and he has offered. And I'm using his own words. I've got him in video saying this. So that's why you got to watch the videos, especially the shorts, those 60-second ones. I've got it all right there. So he is saying that none of the framers in the Philadelphia Convention believed they had the authority to propose the U.S. Constitution, a new system of government. That's his challenge. He put $10,000 out there. Show me one quote from any framer that said they had full authority. Okay, so this has been going on for like 3 years. And I know Robert, he came to Maine. This was years ago. And he did a presentation up in the Maine Capitol. The only people that showed up were the supporters I brought to that meeting. So long story short, I have just been researching them and building this archive of evidence. And it just got to the point where, you know what, I'm going all out. I'm going on the offense because nobody else seems to be, and enough is enough. And now if you're an honest individual, if you're really a seeker of truth, then you just going to have to acknowledge maybe you possibly were wrong. Like I was wrong. but I wasn't so proud I could not admit it. So that's really what we're going to see, the type of character he truly is in this challenge. So my first challenge, and you're right, I teased out the first couple episodes just to get some people to watch. And so I started, and I've learned a lot just putting together this channel. I've come across some golden nuggets, guys. I've been in Article 5 now for almost 10 years. I thought I knew a lot about it. The one I'm dropping Friday is going to blow you away. It blew me away. I'm like, I found this after I started this channel and the idea. So long story short, I'm going to give you some names you probably never heard of. So my first proof for the $10,000, I started with James Wilson. And the reason I started with Wilson is because this is the testimony Robert Brown presents when he goes around the country in front of legislative committees. And he claims this has some kind of authority. Most of these quotes are from the anti-federalists, the people they oppose the Constitution from the get-go. Okay, so obviously there's going to be quotes from those, but then he uses one from James Wilson. He completely takes it out of context. And that's the one I start with. And when you see the proper context and what Wilson is exactly saying, you're going to realize what this guy is up to. He's a manipulator of the facts. He operates as a cult leader would operate by taking things out of context, leaving out critical information. And so I go through this and destroy his testimony. And so James Wilson from Pennsylvania was number 1. I did Rufus King from Massachusetts, number 2. There's a part 2 to the Rufus King video. Just so you guys know, those videos, I did them all in one day. I did 12 episodes in one day in a studio in Pennsylvania. So I might lose some energy in some of them, but I'm building a new studio so I can do these much faster. Then I did Charles Pinckney. Pinckney is my favorite framer. He's going to get 1 or 2 episodes all dedicated to him. And I'm just going to say he is the originator of the Article 5 convention, and I'll prove it in a future episode.
And that blew me away, bro. So, so everyone, leave in the comments, number 1, where you're watching from, but number 2, if you've ever heard of Pinckney, because I haven't heard of. Like I'm going to admit it, right? This is one of those humble moments where I was watching that, like he's going to talk about Madison. He's going to talk about Federalist Papers 40, but feeling all boss, feeling all like, I got this. I know what he's going to do. And then he went and dropped Pinckney on me. And I was like, immediately stopped the video, went to Google, looked him up, was like, what the hell? I'm like, how did I not know this dude? And it's the same type of humble feeling you get when you first learn about the power of Article 5 and that the founders actually did foresee this day coming, right? Like they didn't see the Great Reset. They didn't see the details, but they knew. They were like, this, by history standards, it always goes to crap.
George, Pinckney, in my opinion, he should have the title Father of the Constitution. And I will prove that to you. The guy was phenomenal. And then I did Madison. So I did the Madison one. Everyone knows the Madison one, right? Yeah. So Federalist 40, I'm going to be doing a deep dive into Federalist 40 and addressing each of Brown's points. I've got so much stuff from Brown alone. I could do a whole year pretty much of episodes, but I don't want to spend all my time on him. The purpose of this channel primarily is for the grassroots, any Article 5 supporter out there. I am going to provide, like you're doing, George, I'm going to give you the ammunition you need to push back and prove the opponents are wrong. And I'm going to try to do it as concisely and quickly as possible because I want you sharing it with the legislators, the ones that are getting bombarded with these lies. And when next time these folks show up their committee hearings and they pull out this kind of nonsense, they will realize you're taking that out of context. That's not what he's meaning by this. That's the whole purpose of this.
And that's what Publius Holder does. Like like I sat down, like I did a full breakdown of her too. Like it was fun beating her up with the homie don't play that pillow. I was just sitting there going crazy with that one because she's another one, right? She's another. And now I hear that they're they're getting together now. Like they're joining forces with, the Doo-Doo Club over there with like she sits in front of these legislatures and starts rattling off all these ridiculous versions of the Constitution. Like George Soros Group has a version of the Constitution, and they want, and it's not even what she says that makes me so angry. If you watch her videos, what makes me angry is that you see the folks that are sitting in the seats around her, and you could tell just by looking at these people, like they're just average, everyday, perfectly good people who don't understand much about these things and have gravitated to her. Like as she talks, you could see the expressions on their face. Like, yeah, no, we're never gonna let George Soros. And it's like there's. I mean, yeah, I guess afterwards, right? You may get, if Mark Meckler happens to be there, or if some other advocate happens to be there, they get a chance to. I think Santorum, and there's a few others. Like if some of them guys are there, or even just some of our grassroots folks that just come up and speak, they can combat it. But like, you just get the feeling from looking at these people, like they've latched on to Publius Holder. Like they're ready. They're so used to getting duped and lied to that, ironically enough, it's easier to dupe and lie to them.
Yeah, and I saw somebody make the post, "There's nothing new under the sun," and this is the exact same tactics. And George Washington, there's a great quote, I think it's in the first video I shared, of how the opponents of the Constitution in his day, they used fear-mongering tactics and to prey on the ignorant and the unthinking. And that's the same MO that Publius Holder uses, Joanna Martin, and Robert Brown. And I was on stage with her a few weeks ago in Pennsylvania. And I'll be honest, I think I don't want to be proudful, but I think I destroyed her. And I heard people come up afterwards like, man, she couldn't hold the candle to the evidence, because I was providing evidence. She just spews nonsense. And it's just crazy stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's the path they go. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like when I sit there and I try to make sense of this and say to myself, all right, well, why are they, who does this, right? Like, so if I can't figure out what the motive is, then the next, because I know JBS is all about freaking nullification. And I'm like, nullification is all well and good, but you're not what are you going to do? Pick the 20,000 pieces of legislation that have come out in the last 100 years and start it's insane. And now you're going to have to get into what states are going to be into the nullification and what aren't. And there's no real problem. Like, nullification is like all right, guys, everything else has failed. So, like Article 5 is still like nullification, something that you do if we call a convention and we ratify amendments, and the federal government just outright says, we're not acknowledging the Constitution. Then you can take a look at something like if it ever got to that, which I don't, it wouldn't, but if it did, then you would look at something like that, I would think, but not now. Like, that's not something that would just create abject chaos
Let's exhaust all the solutions in the Constitution first before we start getting outside of the Constitution.
Right. It's almost like saying, it's all lost already. This is all we can do.
And James Madison, there's a great quote Madison said about nullification. He described it as putting a keg of powder under the Constitution and putting a match in the hand of every citizen to blow up the Union. That's what he said about nullification.
Right.
So I noticed the question here by Mern M about the Tamara Scott show. Yes, I was talking to George about that earlier before we went live. So for those of you that are not familiar, that is a program on Frank TV, and Tamara Scott has Robert Brown on quite often. And I've got it saved. If you want me to show the page, George, I can show folks. What I would like people to do is go to her page and ask her, could I come on? I would like to be invited onto Tamara Scott's program to give my side now, give equal time to me to present the evidence that the framers had the authority to propose a new system of government. She's given a lot of time to Robert Brown. He's on there almost every week. And most of the clips that you see me play of him is interviews he's doing on her program. Okay, so he's put that challenge out there numerous times on her program. And if you folks could go to her page, let me just share. I'll pull it up. Let me just share my screen real quick. I'll go to Chrome tab. Like, for instance, here is the program. This is where, can you see that now, George?
I got you. Yeah, hold on.
Okay. So you can see there's Robert Brown there. He's there. So I think she does a show every couple of days. He's numerous. So a lot of these clips I'm just getting right from her own program. And if you click on one of these, I would love for folks to start commenting, maybe share some of my videos down underneath, just start a discussion. I want to go on. She should give me the, now I'm not looking for a debate here. I just want to share.
They're not going to let you on that channel. That ain't going to happen. Like, in the end, look,
we've got a Facebook page too.
If she's bringing him on regularly, there's no way somebody like you or me or anyone who's knowledgeable, right? Like they've had how easy would it have been for her to ask for a Mark Meckler or somebody like that to come on cause action side and say something, right? There's this big organization out there advocating this very thing that she's having someone come on every week and crap on. Like, there's no way she's going to turn around and just be like, let me bring somebody on who's going to who's going to completely destroy my every week guest. Right. Yeah. Clearly she doesn't have many guests or the same guy wouldn't be on every week. So, like, blowing one of them out of the water is probably not going to be, it's probably not. Look, you could try, bro, but she ain't letting you on there.
Well, I want to give her the benefit of the doubt as well. You got to start somewhere, but I want my money, first of all. It's been about a month. My Venmo account, I just checked before we came live, is still, I've got the $5 initial donation from from Venmo, but there's no money from Mr. Brown, and it's over about a month now since I started this. So we got to start seeing that money come in. I think you can only do like $2,000 a week on Venmo. So
yeah, and look, I would look, we could do a 4-way and have her and Brown and me and you on the other side. We'll even let someone moderate it and just tear them to freaking pieces, because the truth is on our side. And that's why you won't hear from them, because that's what happens when you do that. You don't use tactics when the truth is on your side.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know. Until I get the 10 grand, there's no debate anyway. So I don't want to waste my time debating. Time is very precious to me. And so I got to spend my time getting in front of people and sharing the truth. I'll give you a perfect example. I got a new presentation that I did in Maine, pretty much debunking all of this stuff. It's not your typical Article 5 101. It's the opposition research I've been doing. And a woman, after I was done, she said, her exact words, "You saved me." I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, I was supposed to go to a John Birch Society meeting next week. And she's like, there's no way I would go to that meeting now after what you just shared. And so that's what I want to be doing. I want to be presenting this evidence in the areas where he's been going so that I can dismantle his arguments. And especially when we get legislators there, because they have got to see how they're being manipulated, because they don't have the time to do all this research. That's why I did it for them. And so if anyone wants me to come out to their state, obviously it's going to depend on my schedule, but I'm looking to come out and do presentations to basically get the truth out there. So that'd be fun.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And that's like, there are telltale signs about JBS. And we just had someone last week, and I almost let him steal the show. Like, he was asking questions about, and I knew by the direction of the questions he was asking that he had heard this from JBS. And like, so like, whenever I see someone like that come on the broadcast or, start watching and start commenting, I immediately engage them, because this is the opportunity to unpoison them, if you will, and you could see in the person's comments that, and I think it was on the Facebook platform, I forget, but like, you could hear in his comments, and he was even saying like, thank you, I've never heard the other side of the argument. And the fact that I knew that it was the fact that I knew that it was JBS that he was getting that information from sent a message to him as well. And it's like, it's one of those things where like it's very easy to scare people out of stuff today because there's so much BS out there, and there are so many people trying to get you to move in a direction that is not good for you or the country, and they do it with tricks and tactics and this and that people are so skeptical that when they hear, I used to say this on the show, like, and your story being with John Birch for a little while as well, I had Mike Arnold on, who was the state director of Massachusetts for Cause, and the same exact story. He was like, they totally, like, I had a mentor from JBS. The guy was, teaching me all this different stuff, and I bought in, and then I read, and then I realized, and even legislators, same thing. And a lot of people don't realize, like you were saying, when you were with JBS, you would be handing those DVDs to legislators, not as much to regular people, but to legislators. And those are the roadblocks that we're hitting. That's what's stopping us in some of these states from getting resolutions passed, because these legislators, and you hear the legislators. I should see if I could find it. I clipped something to make this very point, that because I hear it all the time. And there were two legislators, and I think this is the clip. And you hear this, what this guy's about to say, you hear all the time.
Again, I studied myself from being opposed initially to being supportive because I saw how significant the framers considered this to rebalance the power between the federal and the state government, and they were very, very committed to balanced political power, not excessive political power.
I also came around. I was against the Convention of States, but I have also, after reading and reading and reading, I have become convinced that you're absolutely correct.
Right? And that's that scenario to me was symbolic of, like, because when things are active, I watch these debates. I'm that geek who sits there and watches these debates and like, because I want to hear it intrigues me to hear what the legislators are thinking, because, people don't realize state legislators, it's a different animal than federal congressmen, and these are not lifetime politicians. There may be a few who have aspirations to go to the federal government and such, but for the most part, these are people who serve a term or two and are done. They do their service and they're regular dudes. I always play a clip of Meckler getting corrected by one of the state senators where he's like, well, you guys do politics for a living and I do. And the guy stopped him and was like, I'm a farmer. And he was like, oh yeah. He's like, we're statesmen, but I'm a farmer. He's like,
if you watch, if you just sit through a couple of those hearings, the arguments it's the same points you hear hearing after hearing, the same top three runaway conventions. They're going to rewrite the Constitution, and so that's why this information is so critical, because it debunks all of that stuff, all of it.
And that's we got to preempt it, right? And this is what, like, when people
hearing.
Right. Yeah. Right. And and people got to realize that the same way that you may hear me talk about being humbled upon learning about Article 5, like my point, I guess, that I was getting to with the state legislators just being folks is that they too, it's like, people get mad. Like, how does our state legislator not know the Constitution? And it's like, come on, nobody knew about freaking Article 5's never been used. It's not like they don't know anything about the Constitution. They don't know about a provision that none of us knew about at some point. And it's like, they thought that I thought I knew about the Constitution. I wouldn't, if I was interested in politics, I'd have run for something before understanding the power of Article. Like it's totally doable that someone can get there and then get a DVD handed to them by somebody in JBS and then see it and believe it, and because, it's not being pushed in their face. If they don't have the grassroots coming at them saying, no, listen, this is what, this is the history behind it. This is what it's really about. Those guys that I just played, those guys were voting against it. I believe that was from South Carolina. They just joined this year. Those guys were against it, but now that, it was grassroots who approached them, undid the damage that JBS did, and got them thinking right again. And then it passed.
Yeah, and the key is you got new people coming in every session, right, with the elections, and the hard part is getting to them first, because once somebody latches on to the fear, it's very hard to break them away from that, and so it's much easier to be initiating with the truth than to try to tear them away from the fear that they're clinging to now. And so that's kind of the reason you're doing what you're doing, why I put together this channel, because they don't have the time to do the research that we've done. Listen, I put a lot of time into this, and it takes time, and they have so many bills they're working on. I wanted to make it short and sweet and easy for them to understand. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish with this channel that I want folks to subscribe to.
Yeah, and that's the other, and that's the thing. But to me, it's like when you look at these state, like I get what you're saying, that they're busy, they got a lot going on. There needs to be someone in their face. But then there's another part of me that's like, dude, like, how do they not see the world on fire right now? Right? Like there's just a part of me that's like that they should be actively looking, right, for a solution, right? And that's the only place that I kind of poke them a little bit and be like, look, it's one thing to not fully understand Article 5, but like if anyone approaches you, and I know people have approached these legislators in almost all of these states at some point, so they either clung to their DVD and said, I'm not going to listen, but it should occur to them when someone approaches them with this, that like, the world is on fire right now. This could be, I got this fire extinguisher that they're handing me. Now, I don't know what's going to come out of it when I pull the trigger, but there is a manual here that I can read, and it'll tell me all about it, right? And that's kind of the analogy that sits in my head when it comes to this. Like, read the manual.
Yeah, one of the episodes I'll do in the future is on amendments, and all this process does. All it does is give the states the same opportunity Congress has to propose amendments, right? That's all it does. And most people are not aware. You might not even know this. I'm going to put you on the spot, George. Take a guess how many amendments have been not proposed by the 2/3, but just simply introduced in Congress since 1789. Just introduced. They might have not gone anywhere, but take a guess. It'll blow you away.
Oh, excuse my phone. I don't know.
We got 27 that were ratified to the Constitution.
Well, but as far as how many, like I know that there's a play here where like
over 12,000.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be something nuts like that.
This
So I was
Congress
like,
alone, the 117th Congress, they're up to. My last count last week, they're up to 67 amendments they've introduced to the Constitution in the last year and a half. So all this does is give the states that same opportunity to introduce a reform. And the reason we're not seeing any amendments get proposed because good ideas do not come out of Congress. It can only come from the states. And so that's why we got
that is very true. That is very true. And really, I think that simple definition of it should be what gets people to think. Like there are common sense elements of this that make me feel like there are certain things that I've thought about because I did the same thing. I stumbled across Article 5. I was listening to it from the cause action perspective. So I was getting all pro convention of states. And then, needless to say, I started digging in more. And then that's when I stumbled across the runaway convention folks. And when I first heard it, I was like, oh, like that's not good, and it's almost like I was waiting for the shoe to drop because it seemed like such a perfect solution that I was like, it's too good to be true. It probably is kind of thing. But then even after I heard the runaway stuff, there's still a common sense element that hits you where you're like, but wait a minute, how can the founders write a document on that level and then totally leave a stipulation in there to create complete, it didn't make any sense. So like I had to go back and continue reading and continue looking. And that's when I started getting into Madison's notes. And like, I'd be listening to someone and then, talk about it, pro and con. And then I'd go look up, whatever it is they're telling me to do. Oh, well, when someone, and some of the runaway people were referencing Madison, Federalist Paper 40. And I was like, oh, and as a matter of fact, it was a runaway convention person, an article on runaway convention that actually got me to read Federalist 40. It wasn't even a pro Article 5 thing. But when I got there, I took his quote, I went in there, I read the whole thing, and immediately I was like, all right, that was a complete tactic. Like that was complete nonsense what they were trying to. It's always somewhere at the bottom paragraph that they pull. I forget the exact quote, but it's like complete. Like if you read the whole rest of it, that quote immediately comes in context.
Let me give you an example of what Robert Brown does in his testimony. So here's a quote by James Madison. It comes out of Federalist 40. Okay. And it says, it is therefore essential that such changes be instituted by some informal and unauthorized propositions. So he lifts that out of context to make it sound like the framers did that, like they didn't have the authority. What that's referring to is the states, the people drafting their state constitutions after our independence. Has nothing to do with the delegates at the Philadelphia Convention. It was talking about the states drafting their constitutions in their conventions back in 1776. So that's how he gets away with this stuff, because nobody bothers to look at the context.
Right. And that's what it is, right? That's where it comes down to. And in like today's day and age, and I feel like this is why the scrutiny is starting to hit JBS, because we're hitting a time in history right now where people are questioning everybody. Like they grew to wherever it was that they, I don't know what heights they achieved, but they grew and solidified themselves as an organization in an era where people trusted such organizations. Like they grew and solidified when people were still watching Walter Cronkite and still, tuning into, the Dan Rathers of the world and whatever, and completely unaware that we were being lied to, or at least not getting full stories out of our mainstream media. And now we live in a world where no one trusts any of them. And because of that, now you've got your naturals. Now you got the people like us who are questioning everything. And as soon as you start questioning stuff, organizations like JBS that have been using those types of tricks and sleights of hand, are exactly the people that get exposed. I remember Publius Hulda. She was on talking to one of the committees, or maybe it was the Senate, and she's using a quote. She's saying that, oh, well, even George Mason would rather cut off his hand than use it to sign that Constitution, and it, like completely leaving out that he was talking about it not having a Bill of Rights, and like that kind of, like if you just hear that and you don't fill it up with the rest of the history behind it, it's like it's tactics, and that's how you know who not to listen to.
Give me a break, Mason. Thank God he was there. I'm going to go into that more detail later. But you know what? He wrote the Bill of Rights for Virginia, I believe. Yeah. Why didn't he bring the Bill of Rights with him to that convention? To make that a reason for not signing it was, give me a break. You had all summer long to draft a Bill of Rights, and you didn't do it. So.
Yeah, it's all good, but the fact of the matter is, in the end, at least there was somebody there asking for it. Like he should have brought it earlier. I agree with you, but if he didn't bring it at all, nobody would have, right? So it's like, in one side of it, it's like you should have been all over this. On the other side of it, it's like better late than never. You know what I mean?
I love the story of Thomas Jefferson. Madison sent him a copy of the Constitution because he was in France at the time. And Jefferson writes back to him and he says, hey, these are the things I like about it. Here's the two things I hate about what you guys did. Number one, you did not include a Bill of Rights. Number two, you did not include term limits, what they call rotation of office, especially on the president. And what's beautiful about those two examples is that we got them both through Article 5. We got the Bill of Rights shortly thereafter, and 2 years later. And then we finally got the 22nd Amendment presidential term limits in 1951. So the insight that Jefferson had was kind of cool, and it was neat how they were fulfilled under Article 5. Now, it didn't come from the states. The Bill of Rights did.
Right.
That was
And that's a
that was
concern of mine with this movement. And like I don't know who I need to talk to or to get my voice out there or whatever, but like I don't want to see this movement get to 30, 32 states and then they try to pass a watered down BS, like I'm past that right now. Like that's how it always goes down in history, is that like we get close and then Congress moves when it gets close. Like I don't want any of that. Like I'm done. I'm straight up done with them right now. Like right now, Daddy's home, and there's some, there's gonna be some explaining to do, and that's it. Somebody's getting spanked. Like there's none of this nonsense where they turn around and go, you know what? Okay. We'll pass a budget, and do this and that, and then it's never going to happen. They're going to loophole the hell out of it. Like it needs to go through. All 34 need to be there. We need to call this thing, and then we can go ahead and take up the fight as to who the delegates are going to be, or commissioners, and how that's all going to, what we're accepting and what we're not accepting from that point on. But it needs to go through.
Get to a convention. We've got to get to a convention, and we got to prove to the country that this process works. It's nothing to be fearful, because once the states pull off the first convention for one amendment or whatever, and it works, and we can introduce a lot more reforms this way, and it will do wonders for Washington, because they will realize, crap, we can't get away with what we want to get away with anymore.
Yeah.
So,
and I got this Corwin Chelway over in Twitch. So I'm not 100% what you're saying here, Corwin. So I'm going to need you to clarify it, but I put it up so that I can tell you that. So he says the downside is the checks and balances come with a schizophrenic global policy. I'm taking that to mean right now we have a schizophrenic global policy, which we kind of do. And it's kind of against our own interests, to say the least. And that, but I don't see where that's a downside in checks and balance. I don't see any balance in anything that's going on right now. I see absolute
checks going on right now. Yeah, this is what I like to say. The Article 5 convention is the ultimate check against a runaway federal government. And if you notice my shirt here, this is my JBS shirt. Your runaway convention delusion is our runaway government reality. That's my answer.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect.
So is there anything else you want me to address? I know we're running out of time. Man, this went fast, George. Holy cow.
Yeah, time flies, brother. Time flies. So, and here's Sheila. So Sheila was at that event where JBS came in and started with their Antifa tactics. Like it just kills me that, to me, it's so clear that this organization has lost its soul. Like whatever, if they're claiming to be a constitutionally minded organization, they clearly the fix is in at some high level of this organization for them to be that dedicated against the utilization of the Constitution at its greatest time of need. Like that drives me insane. And like, we cover here Great Reset all the time. All these globalists, all these psychos. I don't like to just go over problems, because, to be honest, like since learning about Article 5, everything else to me is noise. I follow the globalists because that's grandiose stuff. But like this whole fourth industrial revolution, where the technology is headed, what they're looking to, how they're looking to utilize it, all that. But like, as far as like, Congress tries to pass this crazy bill, or they introduce that crazy bill, or, this Joe Biden fell down the stairs again. And like I'm just over it. Like my expectation right now is that they're just going to do a lot of crazy crap that's going to piss me off. So when I hear another one on like Dan Bongino or Shapiro or wherever, and I like those guys, it's just, what? Like, I don't care what BLM's inner financing is and that they're corrupt. I know they're corrupt. So like, if you do a story on them doing something corrupt, it's like, well, that's like telling me Jesse James robbed a bank. You know what I mean? Like, it's not news to me. You know what I mean? So unless I'm in the bank, it's not news to me. So
Yeah,
I'm
we
like,
got to be spending our time working on something that's going to get the deal done, and that's exactly what this is all about. This is
that's exactly
effective.
what this is.
It's a heavy lift. Before we sign off, if I could just could I share my screen one more time to show the page so people?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And don't worry, man. Look, I own this channel. We're good. We, you know, if we got to go an extra 5 or 10 minutes, we're
Okay.
it's not yes, right?
So for those of you that came in late, here's my Facebook page. It's all things Article 5. If you could like that, would love it. I'm going to be posting my videos, and then my YouTube channel. Let me just show you what we've been talking about. My YouTube channel is the same name. This is where I'll be. I'm trying to do weekly videos, and I'm dropping my my next $10,000 challenge hopefully on Friday. I think you're gonna like it. This is I think my favorite one.
I dropped the link for this in. I put that in all 3 platforms. It's not on the Rumble platform, but it is on Twitch and Facebook and YouTube.
And yeah, if people can share this, let's get the information. So if you know folks who are involved in Article 5, get these, please send out these videos. I'm going to be doing a deep dive into I'm going to be covering what's the difference between an Article 5 convention and a constitutional convention. I'm going to cover the Madison letter to George Tuberville. Did he really tremble at the thought of an Article 5 convention? You know, all these things that we hear coming out from JBS and others, I'm going to do a deep dive and just give you the clear context of it. I'm going to cover the history of Article 5. A lot of great stuff's coming down the pike, and I'm trying to do it in a short, kind of fun way to kind of keep it lively. And so stay tuned. It's going to be fun. It's going to be hopefully information you can share with your state legislators. They are the ones primarily who I'm making this for, because they need to break through all the noise that's out there, all the nonsense. They're getting bombarded with these emails. And so this is a way that they can push back and have some common sense over it. So this has been fun, man.
Yeah, no, it has been cool. And on that note, I don't want to miss the opportunity to tell people to sign the petition. So I'm going to walk you. I'm actually going to go ahead and do a little share myself here for that purpose. So all right, folks. So here's our website. All right. And I shamelessly left the t-shirt sale up there. So we do have the shirts you see on the broadcast available for purchase right here on the front page. But up here, all right, you've got the cause link. All right. And that's it. Sign the petition is right here. It's an excellent PragerU video that'll explain some of the basics of Article 5 if you're that new. But then here, all right, you scroll down a little bit and it'll give you all the states. All right. And now these are the states that have already passed the cause. Okay, so if you're in one of those states, there's still stuff that you can contribute. You can still get the word out. You can still educate people. You know, there's still things that can be done. All right, but keep in mind, we've got 19 states on board, and all of these states can be voted on. That's a lot of states, right? So if you click on here, all right, they'll all be listed, and you can then in these descriptions, it'll give you a brief talk about where it's at, and then you can go ahead and see the actual bill by clicking here. So you can read the actual resolution. Now, if you're like me and you've gone through this, and I actually looked up every single resolution because I had to do the data entry for these pages, the reading becomes a little redundant, and that's a good thing. That's because all of them are talking about the same 3 topics, which is necessary to make the whole thing work. But really, the most important piece is clicking that, where are we? I got to go back a step, is clicking that sign the petition, all right? Now, when you do it, volunteer. There's a volunteer button here you can hit. They'll call you, they'll talk to you, they'll give you whatever, but that's how you can get active in your state, all right? And Kenneth, if you have other ways for them to go do that, by all means. I just, for me, I don't call everyone that signs the petition. So I have
well, that's not my petition. I'm not associated with
you're not. Yeah, you're not with that. I understand. I said, if you have another way if there's something else out there that someone can do to get active, by all means, get them in. But But there's got to be one place that we all gather. That's just the way I see it. There's got to, I don't want to have too many places out there to gather. I want to pick Oh, and on that note, we have a Facebook group called the Patriot Think Tank that all of a sudden has been exponentially growing. And I totally don't pay attention to it. I pay attention to it like I read posts, but I don't moderate it. I don't it's wide open. Anyone could join. I don't approve posts or anything like that. So I will definitely encourage guys, if you guys aren't already in that group, it jumped it was at 450 forever. And it jumped to 600 something in the last 2 weeks. And I was like, what the heck? So
can you do that for my page?
yeah, absolutely. Do you have a group? You got to create it. You create a group.
Oh, it's a group. Oh, gotcha.
It's a group.
Yeah.
So they post things to that group and whatever, but it's a good place to keep people concentrated. So as many cause supporters as I could get in that group, the more, the better. Just for the sake of sharing more cause information. And because there's a million small groups out there for convention estates in general. There's one that's Friends of Convention Estates. We the People Need a Convention Estates. There's, Article 5 Advocates is another group. There's so many miscellaneous groups, and they all have 200, 150, it's I just feel like there needs to be one place we could all hold hands and do a constitutional kumbaya while we, while we bring this thing together. So, and then I want to miss Michael's comment here is bingo. The first Constitution is called, once the first Constitution is called, it's game over for the deep state. That's a significant point, right? The deep state is something we don't talk enough about, but once that precedent is set, I'll be honest with you, the last few weeks, Ken, I've been more so than talking about term limits and government overreach or whatever, more so than any of that, what I'm talking about to people is the precedent. It's that precedent. Scalia said this too. I want to just see it get done once. He's he said, I don't much care what the topic is. And he later said, I want it to be a serious topic. But his point was, I just want to see the process go through, because he believed, as I do, that everyone behaves better once they know daddy's in the room. All the kids, and I do look at the federal government as our child. I do. We created it. It's our child. And in the end, when that child has been allowed to run wild and break stuff and play ball in the house and do all this stuff he's not supposed to be doing, the Article 5 is daddy coming home, and laying the spanking down.
Well, what I testify, you hear all the time, well, the only precedent we have of a convention is the 1787 Philadelphia Convention. Well, no, that's not true. Did you know there's actually been 2 conventions of the states to propose amendments to the U.S. Constitution? Did you know that? Most people
went
don't
to convention?
Know that. Huh?
That went to convention?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
2. I'm going to do some episodes on that. So that's why you got to subscribe. I'm going to share with you that we've had 2
more knowledge.
And not only that, this is what
but they weren't Article 5 conventions, correct?
The only difference is they weren't Article 5, meaning 2/3 did not apply ahead of time, but they met officially in a convention of the states to propose amendments to the Constitution. And one of them actually proposed a term limit amendment on the president, but that'll be another story. But every single year, there's an official convention of the states held every year. All 50 states participate. Now, the only difference is, this is how it functions. The commissioners are appointed by the states. They are given credentials to attend the convention. It's a predetermined subject matter. It's one state, one vote to pass at the convention. And whatever they pass, they bring back to their state legislature to be adopted as state law. So it even mirrors the ratification process. This happens every single year. It's called the Uniform Law Commission. It operates exactly as an Article 5 convention. So we're already doing this officially as states every single year. I attended last year's in Wisconsin. The next one is going to be in Hawaii. In 2024, it's in Boston. And what they do, this began in 1892. They propose uniform state laws. If you ever heard of the Uniform Commercial Code, that came out of this convention of the states. And so this is a great example of how the states are already every year participating in an official convention that they send their delegates, their commissioners to. And so this idea that we don't have precedent is absolutely ignorant. And so
that's incredibly interesting. And Haley's asking, Kenneth, what's your new channel name? I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, it's All Things Article 5. So the YouTube channel is All Things Article 5, and the Facebook page is All Things Article 5. Meet me there, share it. Let's grow this thing along with George's channel, and let's get the truth out there. There's a lot of misinformation we have to debunk, and I'm going to be spending probably the next year debunking all this nonsense.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And it's funny because I had talked about your channel a couple times on the show, nothing as deep as today, but like I had people ask me like, well, isn't he competition for you? I'm like, this is not a sport. Like this, like in the end, this is like when I saw your channel, like I wasn't thinking, oh, now I got someone to compete. I was like, woohoo, people playing offense. Like that was my first reaction. Yeah. Like, I think it's the first thing I said to you. Like it's like it's this is what more people need. Not that everyone needs to start a channel, but like you can help the cause just by simply gathering more support and educating more people. And I know you don't, and I'm not affiliated directly with Convention of States Action either, but I do refer to them all the time because they're there, right? They're going to these legislators, they're doing these types of things, and I'm meeting the grassroots people there, and we're all in the same fight. Like I may not be running All Things Article 5, and he may not be, a direct affiliate of Convention of States Action, but we're all moving towards the same goal. We all want the same thing. And so we're all on the same team. And so when I see a channel like this, I'm like, hell yeah. I got to have this. I was saying it from the beginning. I need to have, as soon as he drops those bombs, I was like, he needs to come on the show. I wasn't bringing you on when we were still doing the teasers, but I'm like, once he drops the bombs on this Robert Brown guy, and then boom, Robert Brown is just he's gone. He must have run back to that Tara lady and be like, I can't believe what they did to me. And then some guy from like the Patriot think tank was like in the comments, and he was like hitting me in the comments, and the videos came out. It was fantastic. It was absolutely awesome. It was a lot of fun. And I look forward to seeing that coming forward. And we do have a bunch of comments here, so I'm going to go through some of them.
We'll be doing this again, George, in the future. I've got a
that may very well be the case. If you have
questions, I'd love to take some questions if you got time.
Yeah, let me see. Well, I don't know if they're questions or people making comments. Let me see.
Oh, okay.
They're like having a conversation here. Hold on. Well, here's a thank you. So Marilyn, absolutely. It's Marilyn. This is what we do, right? And then Haley's saying, please volunteer. So yeah, and that's the key, right? Like I always bust people's chops about like, I don't have time, I don't have the money, I don't have if you don't have the money, then you have the time. If you have the time to watch this, then you have the time to get engaged with social media and go, like if you're still watching this at this point of the show, then you know what? You and I'm not saying don't watch this. Let's not get it twisted. But that being said, you can certainly find the time to talk to your own friends, right? I mean, that's all we're really asking you to do. Talk to your friends, right? Get them engaged, get them educated on it, get them signing petitions and going to events and talking to legislators, handwritten letters. I love the handwritten letter idea. Everybody reads a handwritten letter. Like if a handwritten letter showed up in my house today from someone who I had absolutely no idea who it was, I would probably open that letter and read it because I'd be like, who the hell writes handwritten letters? Like I just think that's a brilliant idea. So there's things like that people can do, but absolutely get active. Like absolutely.
If any of your viewers are in Pennsylvania, I really want to spend some time in Pennsylvania. We got a heavy lift to do in that. There's a organization in there. JBS is not that strong in Pennsylvania, but there's a group, a Second Amendment group called Firearm Owners Against Crime,
Yep.
that are preventing this from, the Article 5 applications. And so I want to spend a lot of time in PA. So if your folks want to help me get out there, do a presentation, I'm looking forward to it. I want to hit the streets hard in PA come the new year.
Absolutely. And there was an actual sit down. The committee in Pennsylvania had actually, because I guess this guy from this Second Amendment organization, you're right, has been holding things up for years. And I guess the committee finally, I guess they had Mark Meckler in one ear and they had him in the other ear, and the two of them have probably been battling it out. And they had this thing where it wasn't like a formal committee hearing, but they did like a sit down almost. And Meckler destroyed the guy, and it's like the guy he almost self imploded. I mean, he was that bad with the stuff he was saying. I mean, he's like, there's nothing in Article 5. He literally said this. There's nothing in Article 5 that requires a supermajority to ratify. And like, I was by myself in a room watching it on a phone, and I was like looking around like, did he just say what I think he said? Yeah. And he was just lobbing softballs like that. But Meckler was hitting him out of the park. Like he was lobbing them to him, and he was just like a home run derby. Like the guy had no case.
I was at an event recently talking to a JBS representative, and he was trying to say how the states only Congress ratifies the amendments. I'm like, no, you mean the states? He goes, no, Congress. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? And he goes, no. And I said, read Article 5. And he refused to read it. I said, he started to get mad. I'm like, can I get you on camera saying what you just said? And by that point, he was really upset. And it's like,
and at that point, he knew he had already just gaffed. And
anyway.
And it would
so
come
hey,
back
like I say in my program at the end, so fear not, let's have some fun, and the truth will prevail. That's what we got to do. Get the truth out there. Let's break up this fear and get it done. We've got to get this done. So George, I want to thank you, man, for this opportunity, and good job with staying in the fight and for you starting this, because I didn't see you until you reached out to me somehow. I don't know how we got connected, but I'm glad we did.
Yeah, because I was all over it, dude. Like there was no way that we weren't going to hook up once I saw those videos drop. And I was like, this dude's going after JBS. I love his show already. Like you were still in the teaser mode, and I was like, I'm all over it. And then when I saw that you got Robert Brown's attention, I was like, oh hell yeah. Now I get to troll Robert Brown in the comments and watch the videos as they come out. I was like, this is just like candy coming, It's like this is just awesome.
Pop yourself some popcorn, sit down, take 10, 12 minutes out of your day. It's going to be well worth it. They're only going to get better. And Robert, listen, I hope you're a man of your word. I hate to take the 10 grand from you, but I think I've earned it, man. I think I've earned the 10 grand here. So
you earned 30, but he's going to wait. Let's just try and get the 10. But the reality is, look, just the point, and I even told him this before you started dropping the bombs. Like he was trying to twist out of what he was, what he was actually challenging and whatever. And I was like, I don't think you're getting the point here. I'm like, if you think that we all expect you to acknowledge that you were wrong and pay your $10,000, I was like, no one expects you to actually cut that check. I was like, it'd be nice. But in reality, the whole point is just to stop you from spewing the nonsense that you spew. And like, that was my main point to him, So Corwin says the 10 grand. Yeah, Corwin. So there was a challenge made by a guy named Robert Brown from John Birch Society that no founder of the United States felt or can be quoted as saying that they felt that they were within their commission given to them by the states. They were in what the states asked them to do within that authority when they wrote the Constitution. And it's complete nonsense. But this guy's not big enough time for people to come after him. And the reality is Ken here went right after him with his new channel, All Things Article 5, and dropped not one, not two, but three founders, quoted them, all of whom clearly saying that they're well within their rights. So technically, this Robert Brown Dootadoo owes, and maybe JBS will pay it for him. Why not,
Yeah,
right? Maybe we should put them on the hook for it. He's been going around speaking on their behalf.
Yeah, it's got to come from JBS, I'm sure. I don't care where the money comes from. I'll take it. It's good no matter from where. Now, if folks, when we're done here, just go to that channel and watch the shorts. I did 4 shorts so far. They're only 60 seconds long, and you'll see exactly what this discussion's been about. I think you'll get a kick out of them. And I put enough proof in those shorts so you can even see it for yourself how I answer it directly. And we'll be dropping a big one on Friday. Big one. You're going to love the Friday's drop, man. I got to edit the video tomorrow, so I'm going to be busy tomorrow, but it's going to drop Friday.
There's the suspense. There it is. Building that suspense, natural television personality. This guy.
Oh, it's going to be the best. I learned it, man. I just came across, I stumbled upon it. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. All right. Hey, listen, that was fun.
It was fun. All right. So, folks, I want to tell everybody thank you. All the cause supporters that came on here, all the Convention of States advocates that came on. You know, I definitely appreciate your support always. I do want to remind everybody. So we're like 700 followers away from monetizing on Facebook. So I am like stoked that that's the case. We've got like 9,300. I don't even have Facebook up right now, but we got like 9,300 followers or something. And so 700 more really could be just because our videos go crazy on Facebook. So in the end, we could get that just by friggin' 2 or 3 more videos. So if you guys will just, if you haven't followed already, I know we've spent most of the channel telling you to follow all things Article 5, but you can chew gum and walk at the same time. So, upon doing so, you should already be on my channel if you're watching this. So make sure you subscribe. And then all of our Facebook followers, I want to let you know that we need you to get up and walk over to that YouTube room and click the subscribe button there as well. YouTube is not distributing our content nearly at the level that Facebook is. So I would like to force them to do so. And I feel like as the subscriber, because the subscriber base still grows, just slower and steadier than it does with Facebook. But like you'll see this as you go along, Ken.
Yeah,
like,
I'm learning all this right now.
Yeah, you'll see how this works. But like you'll get to learn the whole shadow banning and all that. It's fun. But we just got through shadow. They just shadow banned my last post because I talked about the climate cult. So that was it. That'll get you some slow moving. But the point is, YouTube does it all the time. So like I literally have to manually ask people to head over there to get pushes. We'll do like 10 or 15 subscribers a week there, whereas like Facebook, I'll gain like 150, 200 followers in a week. Like Facebook, once you build up momentum, people start sharing your stuff. It's a much better platform for that sort of thing. Yep. YouTube is just kind of, I don't know. I'm hoping things change, but like right now it looks like YouTube doesn't want to put our content out. So we'll have to, so I'll need your help. So I'm calling all my Facebook peeps to go ahead and do that. Don't forget to check out All Things Article 5, and we're out.
And like that,